Hey, this is Raise Radio, the holistic wisdom podcast for awakening women that weaves food and nutrition, traditional wisdom, spiritual expansion, so that you can feel your best, body, mind, and soul. I'm your host, Raina Lutz. Let's dig in. Today, I want to talk about anxiety, and it's such a big topic, and there is so many different directions I could take a podcast about anxiety. So the reason that I want to talk about it is because years ago in my practice, mental health became really important to me as a teaching, because I was suffering with anxiety. I was also getting a lot of clients with anxiety, and I was just noticing sort of this pattern of mental health concerns in both myself and my clients. And so it became really important to me to learn about self-care and wellness and supplementation and, really an integrative and effective anxiety management plan. And so I started blogging a lot about it. I started talking a lot about it. I started, putting on workshops and events and classes and talks and a lot of support for mental health and anxiety. And I just think it's nicer when someone is learning from someone who understands it deeply, who's been through it. And the parts of me that suffered from anxiety, it was very debilitating. I was really, really good at hiding it. I was really good at masking myself, and so people would have no idea. But my first experience with anxiety was really wild, because I was actually on vacation. My friend from years and years ago, when I was studying nutrition, she was one of my roommates in Vancouver. I had 9 female roommates when I was studying holistic nutrition in Kitsilano in 2010. And one of those roommates was from Paris, and her and I got really close, and she said, "Come to my wedding," years and years later. And so about 2016-ish, I went to the south of France for her wedding. And that is where I had my first panic attack. And it really tainted the trip, because not only did I have real fear that something was so wrong with me that I was dying, because I had never had one before. I didn't know that that's what a panic attack felt like. So I really did believe I was dying. And that was a, initiation in itself. But I also landed myself in a hospital where there were no English-speaking doctors. And so watching that circus play out was pretty wild. So really challenging for me to come back after that, and to sort of land back in my life and back at home in the Okanagan, and wondering, kind of just what just happened to me? What just happened? And it took me a while to actually begin to understand, settle the reality into my mind, and begin to understand that I actually had suffered an anxiety attack, and that I was dealing with mental health issues. And before that, I'd always been more on the depression side. I always, I like to say to people, it's a spectrum. And so I always say to people, do you kind of swing on the depression side or the anxiety side, or do you kind of watch yourself maybe swing back and forth between the two? Now, of course, those are just labels. They're just words. And sometimes it's we want to know what it is, right? Our brain wants to put a label on it and have a sticker on it, say, this is what it is. But of course, throughout our life, we have times where things depress us and things give us anxiety, but it doesn't necessarily mean we have that diagnosis or we actually have that thing. It might be a short-term thing. It might be something that, we're just dealing with at this particular window in our life, and then it changes. And so it's really, it was important to me to not be attached to needing a diagnosis, because I knew that I wasn't ready to jump on meds right away. I wanted to try everything I could holistically to support my body before I got on a medication that would be affecting my mind. And so that was really important to me And I will report today that I am still panic attack free. I have been for quite a while. And I still have anxiety, but it is so much more managed now. Like I would say having regular panic attacks is like full anxiety. Having regular panic attacks is like 100% anxiety. And I would say compared to that existence, my anxiety is at about 10% now. Like I still experience it. Sometimes I still feel it. Sometimes it creeps up in weird intrusive thoughts or made up stories in my head about dying. But it's not taking over my life anymore. So, sometimes there's so much noise in our head. And then with the way that the world is right now and the amount of stress that's placed and demanded of women, there's a lot of pressure. We are trying to, work and run homes. We are trying to support our community and give back while also trying to figure out a balance of self-care and how we can, balance taking care of our soul and spirit while also nurturing everyone around us. Then there's, eating well and getting exercise and. So, it's like, just feels like constant stress. And so when we have that increase in our adrenal gland activity, those stress hormones, it takes up vitamins and minerals. It takes from us in our bodies. And so, it's our body produces quick energy to help overcome that stress. And that's part of why we crave sugar a lot, is our body trying to, get this fast energy to help with some of what's been used up by the body. So we do need better nutrition. We need really dense nutrition, which means we need a lot of whole foods when we're dealing with anxiety. And unfortunately, when we're dealing with anxiety, like when we're in an active window with anxiety, our natural reaction is typically to want to do the opposite. So we're gonna say, fuck whole foods. I want some ice cream, or I want some, pizza, or whatever's fast and tasty, but not necessarily good for us. So that's a stress mechanism, a coping mechanism, right? We're using that food for quick energy, but also we're using it to numb our feelings, which is no different from using, alcohol or cannabis to just push away and bottle down and repress our feelings. So some foods, and this is not, this has been researched, that some foods act as natural calming agents for anxiety, while other foods can send our mind into overdrive. So this is number one we want to look at. If we're dealing with panic attacks and anxiety, we want to look at food. We want to look at what's going in, and we want to make some changes to support our brain, support our mind, support our gut health, right? There's this amazing triangle of all of how these all work together. And we want to support that so that we can start noticing less panic attacks. That's the goal. So, if you're struggling to keep your anxiety attacks at bay, you might want to start, meeting with a therapist, attempt meditation, and make sure that you're having exercise every day. And then here's some, really common and easy dietary changes. So you just want to ease these into your diet. So asparagus, there's studies indicating that people who suffered from anxiety and depression may have a folate deficiency. And so one of the things that you can do is start adding more asparagus into your diet. It's a really good substitute just to add to any meal that you're already having, right? And that's something that I really encourage people is like, you don't have to change your diet overnight. You can just add in like once a week or once a month. It's like, okay, we're adding this food in every day or every week. And it's going in addition to what you're already eating. And that way we start feeding our body more of this dense nutrition. It starts wanting the junk food less. So this is called the crowding out method. And so the crowding out method is a way to introduce more foods that are going to help our body to understand that we don't really need the other foods. It's going to dump a lot more nutrients in our body, which is really at the end of the day, all our body is actually asking for when it asks for things like junk food. it doesn't actually want junk food. It's looking for nutrients. That's what it's actually looking for. So when we start giving our body more nutrients, it's going to automatically feel more satisfied, feel more fulfilled, and it won't be asking you for junk food as much. That's just how this works. And so I promise you, if you start introducing more fresh foods and whole foods and real foods into your diet, that you will notice a change in your addiction to junk food. So the second food that you want to add to your diet, if you are struggling with anxiety, is avocados. So now I love avocados, and there's a lot of interesting new things we've learned about avocados and how they're grown, and but fats, we're trying to get some B6 in, we're trying to get some healthy fats, because there's neurotransmitters in our brain that vitamins will help us make, including serotonin, and that influences our mood overall. That's our happiness. We need our happiness hormones. So the B vitamins have really positive effects on the nervous system, and deficiencies of these vitamins have been linked to increased anxiety in some people. So because avocados are rich in B vitamins and have really beautiful fats in them, we want to pick those. We want to pick those when we can. Avocado is a really easy one to get in. As soon as they get a little bit darker and they're just a bit squishy, that's when they're great. And you can just mash it up, put some fresh lemon in there, a little bit of sea salt if you like, and fresh garlic if you want. Sometimes I'll just mash up an avocado on its own, and I don't make a proper full guac. You can put it on tortilla chips, you can put it on rice cakes or on your toast or your sourdough. Great, easy to get in. Blueberries is my next food for anxiety. So when we're anxious and stressed, our bodies crave vitamin C that helps repair and protect ourselves. Our cells, and blueberries are packed full of vitamin C. So these innocent looking berries are bursting with antioxidants and vitamin C. And one study has examined the effects of oral vitamin C supplements on anxiety and found that antioxidants can be useful in both prevention and reduction of anxiety. So instead of reaching for ice cream, make the swap: blueberries instead of sugary sweets when hunger strikes. That is going to support the part of you that is dealing with anxiety right now. And you'll notice that I keep saying the part of you or the part of me instead of your anxiety or my anxiety. And that's because I'm trying to reword it. I'm trying to reword it so that we can understand that we are not our anxiety. It's just a part of us that experiences that, right? Like we understand that we aren't our arm, but that we have an arm. It's part of us, right? So I like to separate that, because it in our mind can separate the experience of anxiety, that it's a thing that we experience, that we feel once in a while, but it's not who we are, even though it might feel sometimes that it is. So it is easier to crave sweets than blueberries. I mean, obviously, I know people are going to listen to this and roll their eyes going, okay, well, obviously I would rather have a donut than a bunch of blueberries. So absolutely understand, in the case of, trying to keep our healthy bacteria balanced in the gut, trying to keep our blood sugar stable, thinking about positive immune system, like all of those, we want to think about whole foods, and we want to cut out sugar. So blueberries, when they're in season, they can just be one of your go-to snacks, right? You can just have them. You just have them throughout the day. You can add them to your granola, yogurt, smoothies. I just snack on them all day. Like when they're in season, it's just going to be blueberries in my car. And if you get in my car, you're probably going to sit on blueberries because they're just going to be there. So they're a big part of my life. And I hope that you will enjoy that addition as well. My fourth food for supporting the part of us that is experiencing anxiety is turkey. So if you've ever heard of tryptophan, it's the nutrient in turkey that puts you to sleep after that big meal. Okay, but it's a little more than that. So tryptophan is an amino acid that the body needs to produce the neurotransmitter serotonin, and that helps us regulate sleep and mood. So tryptophan can help reduce anxious feelings. It is a precursor to serotonin. And so we know that increased levels of serotonin can help elevate our mood, but our serotonin production is limited by the availability of tryptophan. So supporting our gut health can make an impact too. If you don't like or don't eat turkey, you can also find tryptophan in nuts, salmon, eggs, soy products, and spinach. My fifth food is yogurt. If you don't eat dairy, that's okay. You can skip this one. You can take a probiotic supplement, or you can eat sauerkraut, or you can drink kombucha. You might not be surprised to learn that a fermented food like yogurt is good for our brain, our mental health, because, we've known for a while about the gut-brain connection. But more recently, there's been a lot more connections about the two coming out a lot more. So there has been a link found between the consumption of fermented probiotic foods and a reduction in social anxiety. And so the best yogurts contain live and active cultures. They are guaranteed to have 100 million probiotic cultures per gram, or about 25 billion probiotic cultures in a cup. Woof, that's a lot of bacteria. Good bacteria, yum, yum, yum. There's other probiotic foods, of course. There's pickles, sauerkraut, kombucha, miso. I have a Facebook group called Fermentation in the Interior, BC. That's a good place to find cultures or share recipes or just get inspired if you're getting onto the gut health, gut culture or food culture train. There's a lot of cool people in there that can help you find what you need and just share resources. So, you don't want to eat a whole container of yogurt, right? You want to be mixing it with other things. So what usually people do is they'll mix it up with instead of adding so much liquid in their breakfast, they'll use it as part of a liquid, either with their like granola, if you're a granola person, or if you're a smoothie person. So that's one way that you can get it in. If you're doing other raw fermented foods, then you just want to have them as a condiment just on the side of your plate. You just need like a tablespoon or two a day. Super easy. Okay. My sixth food is salmon. Oh, salmon, glorious salmon, my favorite. So omega-3 fatty acids are a very necessary addition to our diet when it comes to supporting anxiety. So there's omega-3 fatty acids in foods like salmon, chia seeds, soybeans, and walnuts, as well as cold-pressed olive oil. And in my 12 years as a nutritionist, I never thought I would have to put the word real in front of the words olive oil, but I do. So you want to find real olive oil, which is harder to find than you imagine. The organic cold-pressed in health food stores would be a second best. But you want to find like proper olive oil because most of them are cut with things like canola. Our brain requires proper fats to function properly, and for us to eat enough of the beneficial fats to support our healthy gut, brain, and our microbiome. So one of the ways that you can do this is to start replacing one meal per week that typically contains meat or chicken to replace it with salmon. And I know that for some people, a juicy steak might be really hard to pass up. But again, I'm just asking you to add, because the omega-3 fatty acids in salmon can help keep our cortisol and adrenaline from spiking. So it's amazing. We want to get more salmon in. If you're like, I don't like the idea of cooking salmon, well, canned salmon. And salmon is such a special food. A lot of people just love salmon. Like it feels really good in our body, and that's like another exciting part of anxiety is, and I know that sounds really weird to say, but it is an exciting part of the journey to getting back to ourselves when we're on the path of anxiety is relearning what foods feel good for us and relearning what foods are going to nourish us, even in times when we're feeling tense and stressed and not safe in our bodies. Okay. My final food switch for supporting anxiety is brown rice. A lot of people don't like brown rice. They don't like the texture. They say it's too mushy or that they can't cook it right or it takes too long to cook. But in reality, brown rice just has more minerals in it than white rice. So because we're trying to go for more minerals, then we're going to pick foods that are, again, have more nutrients in them. That nutrient dense is what we're going for. A lot of places where you go for sushi, they also will offer you brown rice with the sushi for an extra $1 or so. So that's an interesting switch. You can experiment with this. Some people find that this complex carbohydrate really helps balance their blood sugar, and it does add more minerals into the diet. There's very, very mixed messages on the internet about brown rice versus white rice. And there's no one fix, there's no one cure. It's all about experimenting and taking time to find out what combinations of food and therapies is going to work for you. So even these really simple food recommendations that I made, there might be one that just doesn't work for you. Like there are people out there that have allergies to certain foods. So of course, don't eat that one. There's always going to be replacements and alternatives for ones that don't work for you. And, these are also just this is just my food recommendations. I'm just one holistic nutritionist out of a billion ideas out there, but you have to be the one to decide what works for your body, what feels right for you. And because we all, have such different histories and needs and, ancestry, there's going to be lots of differentials in there and lots of variables. And that's kind of the exciting part about this is like, you get to decide, you get to step into, when we decide that we're going to work on something, work on our wellness and, sort of do this like holistic framework before we go a conventional route or at the same time, like parallel with a conventional route. As we step onto that path, we get to be the ones to decide what feels right and what works for our body. And that gets to change. So, when I first wrote this blog years and years ago, because these were foods that I was adding in, they were helping me. And I was changing my diet for like 30th time because I had, come out of nutrition school years before, and you do lots of experimenting, of course. But, there's foods now that I eat that I wasn't eating this many years ago when I first wrote this blog. And so if I, were to rewrite this blog about foods that help my anxiety now, well, that's different now. Like now my diet has way more greens in it. It has bison in it, which I never had in my diet 7-8 years ago. There's things that are, there's things that have evolved, that have changed. There's foods that I don't want to eat anymore because I'm just tired of. Gluten and dairy, I can't eat anymore, so I don't really eat yogurt. There's things that have shifted. And that's the interesting, exciting, liberating part about all this is that we do get to say, what things feel in our body. We get to track that and we get to decide. So there's a lot more that I can go into. I'm going to do other blogs on because I try to keep these short. I'm going to do, there's supplements for anxiety, and there's like food and lifestyle shifts and food partnered with self-care rituals that you can do as well to really start nourishing your body and allowing your body to feel safe again. Because at the end of the day, we can do all the holistic supports in the world. But if we're still not feeling safe, if our nervous system isn't rewired and we feel safe walking through this world and calm, if we can't heal some of our trauma that got us there, we're just not going to be able to feel away from the experience of anxiety, right? So we can try all these different things, but at the end of the day, it's all about learning how we got on this path, and then how do we get back to a place where we can feel safe again? And food's a part of that. It's a huge part of that. And wellness is a huge part of that. Like these all work together. These all work hand in hand. So hopefully this holistic food support will be helpful for you today. And I thank you for listening. Thanks for listening. You can find me online at www.rainadonlutz.com.